Hello and welcome to this webcast as part of the Single Sales Principle program. This is a continuation of the webcast that we've been doing on the ERRICA objection handling process, and this is where we move on to the commit area, the fifth area of ERRICA. Previous webcasts have looked at empathize and refine, reposition and isolate. Now we're going to look at commit before in subsequent weeks we get into answering the objection, which I know is where we all want to get to in the end. It's really important, and the ERRICA process talks about this an awful lot, to make sure that we actually do take all of the steps that we need to before we get to the answer part. And the commit is no different from that. If you miss out this step, you are potentially putting your agreement at risk with people, and you're making it far harder to get the answer you want from the customer. Get the yes at the end. So what is this commit idea? What are we actually trying to get people to do? Well, once we've isolated all the objections, so we know the entire list, could be one thing, could be a whole range of stuff, could be easy to handle, could be difficult to handle, but we at least know what it is we've got to handle. We basically need to say, if it is possible to address this issue or fix this problem or address all of these problems, would you then go ahead? In some ways, it is literally just another check step that we put in place. But there's more to it than that. Psychologically, it's a very powerful tool to use. And it is applied by using this if and then structure. The idea is by putting the if and the then together, we are more likely to get things to happen because we connect the stimuli of a particular piece of activity with something that the customer is actually going to do. If this thing happens, will you do this? Yes. It then becomes quite difficult for them to not do it if the stimuli, if the original if part comes true, because they've made a commitment to the connection between these two things. There's an awful lot of psychological research about this. We talk about an awful lot of it on the Single Sales Principle course, but I wanted to give you a slightly different perspective on it as part of this webcast. It's a process called using implementation intentions. And the idea is, instead of just having an intention, what you need to have is the intention to implement something. You need to become much more specific. And a gentleman called Peter Gollwitzer, I hope I'm pronouncing his name correctly, back in the late 1980s into the early 1990s, came up with this concept of implementation intentions. Now, his research was all about basically how do we get people to commit to things in a way that they are more likely to actually deliver against that commitment. And instead of saying, I want to lose weight, it would be when something happens, I will do this. So when I see the dessert menu, I am going to order a coffee. It's much easier to deal with, and people are much more likely to commit to that than it literally just saying, I'm not going to eat dessert. Because it connects it to something else happening and it creates a trigger for the response that we're looking for. Another great example, which was built on in some research in the late 1990s, was what happens with fear. So we might say, do you know what? Let's not be scared of spiders. The problem with that is it's just a bit too abstract at this point. So using the idea of implementation intentions, what we can do is saying, next time I see a spider, I am going to be relaxed, or whatever it happens to be, whatever we want to be, whatever state we want to be in when we see that spider. The key is actually about the pre-bit. When this happens, if this happens, then this will happen. By building up that connection, we're making it far more likely that the implementation part will happen because it's connected to something else. So the if and the then process is absolutely critical. If we can resolve this issue, if I can prove to you that this is going to happen, if I can reassure you in this area, if you can be reassured in this area, will you say yes? Will you sign on the dotted line? Will you buy today? What we're not asking them to do is actually buy today. It's a little bit early for that because we haven't given them a solution. We haven't provided the answer to the objection. But what we have done is we've given them a route towards saying yes, a route towards signing on the dotted line. And by clearly signposting what that route is by using the if and the then process, we just make that journey towards the yes that little bit easier. So thank you very much for watching that very short webcast this week. If you've got any questions on it or you'd like us to go into a little bit more detail about any of those areas, please don't hesitate to get in touch. You'll find contact details on the website. Visit lamour.com and it'd be great to hear from you. Thank you.